Hi, my name is Salvador Alanis. I'm one of the co-founders of the Institute for Creative Exchange here in Toronto. This week we're going to have a conversation with a very good friend of mine, Gerardo Montiel-Klint. He's an amazing photographer, an amazing contemporary artist, and some years ago we had the opportunity of working together in a book that was published by Artes de Mexico, this fantastic publishing house in Mexico dedicated to Mexican art. And that particular work, the work of that book, was published was shown in an exhibition at the Huesca Photography Festival. And well, Gerardo's work is part of a lot of contemporary art and contemporary photography collections all over the world, in Japan, in the US, in Brazil, and obviously in Mexico. And we reached this time Gerardo Montiel at his studio, and we talk about the series that he developed lately, his series Finlandia, which is displayed in our iStore website. Gerardo, thank you for your time, for talking with us. And first, just to start, because you were here last year with us, and you were conducting a workshop about photography and sound. What was more or less your experience on that? How was the result?
It was pretty neat. At the last day, we made an exhibition with the work of the people that were at the workshop. It was the first time I did a workshop like that, using sound and photography, since it's a thing that I have been thinking about for, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, that I have been introducing sound to my own work and to thinking more about the presence of sound on still images, not on movies but on still images. And it has to do with the landscapes that I have been traveling around. So I thought that it was a good way to make an introduction for this theme, for the assistance of the workshops in Canada, and not to just record the sound of the landscape, but how to alter that sound so that you can make soundscapes, so you can make more like an iteration of many things, thinking thinking on an exhibition, but thinking about this marriage between, or this synchronicity between sound and image.
In fact, when you were checking, doing portfolio review, I remember that you showed a piece of one piece of this new series that you have called Finlandia with the sea. What is part of the new work? No, this like a Black Sea, very shocking, very attractive image, and it had sound, no? Or am I just constructing something that didn't exist?
I'm working on sound. I'm recording sound, and I'm right now experimenting with sound, since I am not a musician. So I'm experimenting with sound, and yes, that image is from a series called Finlandia. That it doesn't have to do with the country Finland. It's just a game of words. It's Finlandia. It means something like the end of the land, the end of the earth. No, so it's a game about that. But in Spanish, Finlandia is Finland, but it doesn't have to do with a country. Yes, I have been working with sound for this series, and this series Finlandia began in 2018.
Because I love it when you showed me the work. I think it's really amazing, because you have all these references of romantic writers and the Sturm und Drang, the German ideas on art and literature and music. So and also you were using Finnish musicians, composers, no, as an inspiration. So why don't you tell me a bit what were you thinking, or what were the premises or all these elements that you are now taking to combine it in this new series?
Well, it has to do with a cross-reference between many things. Finland, no, or Finlandia, the end of the earth. So there are many. There are like 6 main points. It doesn't have to do in importance. It's more or less where they come from. The first, one of them is Carl Jung and the unconscious, and something that he called in Spanish is called. Libre asociación is kind of free association, no, and it has to do with thoughts, no, with the unconscious and with communication with your unconscious. Second has to be the sound. So it's the first time that I'm making a series that is usually I'm more into literature on text for beginning series or portfolios or series, and this time I began with Finland from Sibelius. No? So that's the kind of the score of the whole concept about the emotion. No? How can music have emotion, and how can you translate an emotion into image? It's not to illustrate Finland or Finlandia from Sibelius. It's to make my own word, my own unconscious, with this as a trigger to begin the images with this epic sound of Finland from Sibelius. The other thing has to do with alchemy, with the 4 points of alchemy or the 4 stages of alchemy. That has to do with a transmutation of the being, no, from lead into gold, but it has to do more with the unconscious, and that's also has to do with Carl Jung, no? And the other thing is has to do with my own history, no? My family coming from Germany, and that will I develop later. That has to do with the cliffs in the Baltic Sea that are called Klints, no? And that's my family name from my family that came from Germany, and sound, and at last it has to do with emotion, no, and has to do with this Storm and Drang, that it's a German movement that has to do with literature and also with music, that has to do with emotions more than the rational thing. So Carl Jung, alchemy, music, how to translate sound into music, and it has to do more with like an inner conflict. That inner conflict has to do or has been with us, with humans, since the beginning. And you cannot understand Greek theater with drama and comedy. That in both there has to be a conflict. If there's no conflict, there's no story, there's no play, no. So that's kind of the main essence of how Finland began as a photo project, or a project that has to do with sound, installation, photography, video, no?
But I really, one of the things that is also very interesting for me is that obviously you're talking about the end of the earth, the edge, no? There's like a point where the ships used to go, and then if they cross that part, they would just go into the abyss and all that, and the idea of the Finisterre. And I remember when you were talking about the project, you said that you were gonna visit like different places to develop this project. The photos that you showed me, where did you take them?
It has to do with an analogy, again, with a metaphor, no? And the end of the land, or the end of the earth, is also like the end of the rational thing. Is the rational thinking, and it's like taking a dive into the space, or taking a dive into deep sea, no? That's kind of the movement also that I'm trying to do. And it's an analogy of the inner thoughts or the unconscious, no? The inner thoughts, the deep sea, the deep space, that it's black, no? And it's the void, no? So in that understanding, I try to do to play with geography and emotions, and also psychology. So For me, I wanted to play or take pictures on islands, on peninsulas. That's how it's, yeah, on peninsulas, and also on the ocean, the sea. For me, these 3 points were very important: islands, peninsulas, and the sea. No, but not as a place, but as a as a metaphor of isolation, as a metaphor. For example, that's what I think, that people that are used to be, or in history, that people that used to live in islands were really into that space and not seeing outside. And it has to do with history. The people from Italy, and that is a peninsula, or the people from Spain, that it's a peninsula, or the people from Portugal, that's in the peninsula, used to go outside, or the people in the Maya region in the peninsula of Yucatan used to go outside. So that's a thinking that I have, that the people that live in a peninsula have to go outside. That is completely opposite from the people that live on islands that are more isolated. I don't know why, no, but that's kind of the history of the Roman Empire, the Spanish conquering almost all the world, the Portuguese people, or the Mayans that were also like a big empire. No, so in that sense, that's what I wanted to do, but with my own unconscious. Being on a peninsula to see outside, more than who I am or who I think I am, trying to mutate, or to look for the unknown, no? And also the island, to know yourself. So I went to the Galapagos Islands, and that it was out of this world. It was incredible trip, but in that sense, into try to know myself more, is not just traveling. It has to do with philosophy. It has to do with alchemy. So that's what I'm trying to reach with a photo project. And it's kind of remember that I was telling you about the alchemical stages, no? So the first one is the nigredo, the blackness, no? And blackness is lead, no? That is nothing. And how to transmute it into gold, no? And to gold is to be a better being, and not money. Is not that thing. So in those stages, I try to be on the island, or the peninsula, and the ocean, because it's like a route, no? Like route, no? Like a route. And there are like these marine maps. What, there's not a road, no? It's just with the stars. You have to try to get to the other places. But for example, the people that were in the Vikings, or they didn't know where they were going. It's just a travel, to a trip, and it has to do. It also was like a kind of a leap of faith, no? Who knows what is going to happen? Maybe I will die, but I will go that way to the end of the earth, to the unknown. So that's kind of the idea of the project. I don't know if I'm being clear with this, but in my own way, it's like trying to do things different, as I have been always doing images. And in a certain way, the blackness, or the nigredo, or the lead, is how I have been, that are images that are made on studio, with illumination, and with I have all the control that I wanted to do. I have began making a lot of experimentation, and then the last part, that it has to do with ruedo, the last part of the alchemical stage, is where it's photography, but it's not photography anymore. I don't know how to explain this. It's more like a mental image. It's more like it's not the landscape, or the snow, a storm of snow, or a wave hitting into a cliff, taken by a camera. It's more like how I feel that thing how I imagine or how I wanted to make that representation, no? And it has also to do with things that I have been reading. I like to read a lot about romanticism, but also although my family is from Germany, I don't speak no German at all, but I like very much how the words are constructed, no? How a word has many meanings in German language. And I read about how drawing, there are many types of drawings in German words. It's not just drawing or dibujar in Spanish, but it has to drawing trying to copy, drawing trying to record, drawing trying to make something new. But it's like specific kinds of drawing, no? And I was fascinated with those type of words, and it has to do with the Baltic Sea, and it has to do with the roots, and it has to do with the unknown, and it has to do with breaking the rules. Well, my own rules.
One of the things is when you were here in Toronto, you went to the you went outside the city. You went to the Prince Edward County, and you did some photos in close to, in the lake close to Kingston and in some other places. And when you showed us the photos and the images that you worked, it immediately made me think in how some of your first work was originated with this idea of using the inspiration of painting in a way, some sort of pictorialist style, to transform it into photography in some way, obviously with reinterpretations and with reenactings and yourself in the photos. And in this case, it was also more or less like the same, but you didn't have the reference. You were taking the photos of the landscape, and immediately my first reference was the group of seven, the painters in Canada, which I know that you never took it, but it's really something. It's very interesting how similar is the at least the sense of the landscape and how it was depicted.
For me, when you comment me that, it was really pleasing, but because it has to do with the archetypes of Carl Jung. No, it's something that is in the DNA of the human being. No, so when I was in Canada, I tried to travel to the Thousand Islands. No, that for me was, well, there's a place where there are 1,000 islands, and I'm working with the island. That would be great to be there. Unfortunately, it was a really cold winter, and it was closed at that part. But it was a really powerful travel, because I traveled by land, by car. I have never drove on a storm of snow, and for me it was scary. Well, really scary, but at the same time was so powerful. It was like the darkness, the snow, the weather. I went by the Lake Ontario, and it was really freezing, and the color of the landscape, it was really moving. It was really, and being alone, because I was traveling alone in a country that part of the country that I didn't know at all. No, so it was really. The end of the earth. It was kind of going into the unconscious, going into a trouble, like a leap of faith in a certain way. And yes, when you told me about the painting, at that moment I was thinking more about melancholy, and nostalgia, and about loss, and many things. And I was more into the song Finland from Sibelius, and I was more into reading romanticism and German romanticism, and this treats us has to do with a soul that it's not that is in a quest with reality. That reality, it is not enough, no, that it's painful in certain way, but at the same time is reaffirming that you are alive, no? So for me it was incredible trip. I want to go back, but I want to go farther. I want to go to Nova Scotia and to that for me, since I was a kid, I had a book in the family library that it was called Canada, and there were a lot of photos of Nova Scotia, and it's something that I it's kind of like a print on my own childhood baggage about what is Canada, no? Although I know Canada is bigger and there's more things and whatever, but it's something that for me was really moving when I was a child, a kid, and I used to have a special relation with books with pictures since I was a kid. So that book, it was from the Time Life collection, and it was just Canada, no?
Another element that for me was very revealing when I saw the photographs, and all your photos in general, is the treatment of color, because it's not like the traditional treatment of color. And when you see like photos of the landscape, you expect more or less a very defined palette, and yours is really surprising.
I think for me, color has always been really important since the beginning that I began making photography. Even when I made black and white photography, I usually made my own chemicals to modify the color. It has been always a kind of an obsession to modify things. When I began working with color, I used to have filters in the camera to make special process to develop film and also to alter the color. I think I have this inspiration. For sure is Siqueiros, this Mexican painter. When I saw the first, because I knew Siqueiros, the portraits and the people, but when I saw his landscapes and the color and the force, for me it was like outstanding. It was like a tremendous it was mind-blowing when I saw the landscapes of Siqueiros, because I didn't knew he made landscapes, because he's more known for the figure, for the human figure, no? And that is one instance. The other thing is cinema. When I saw, I think there are like many movies that for me were like really something. That's also because I saw them when they were out at the cinema, not a time after, but when they were out, much more before that I thought on being a photographer. No, one of them is Blue Velvet from David Lynch. The ear in the middle of the grass, the colors of the interiors, that pink kind of haze in the interiors, for me was outstanding. The other one is Paris, Texas from Wim Wenders. This guy walking in the middle of the desert with this light, and also the cabin with Natasha Kinski talking to his ex-husband, and the color there was amazing. And this will be a cliche. And also Amélie. When I saw Amélie and from Jean-Pierre Junot, the French director, and all the movies from Darius Khondji, that it's a cinematographer, that were all these colors, no? So I was kind of young when I saw those movies, 18, 19, 20 years, and when I saw those movies and those colors, I was completely blown out. And much more before that, I thought I was going to be a photographer or whatever. So I think I have that kind of a stamp on me, that the mood that can color for a frame, no, a frame of Darius Khondji, a frame of Lynch, or this last one of Mandy, that the color is a subject. It's not just color. is a subject or another character, and in that same way, the light is a character. It's not just a light fixture in the movie to make a movie. It's a character. Sometimes the same light is moving, no, with shadows and whatever. And also when I saw the last one, Mario's Baba's movies, the light and the shadow and the color. So Mandy is like from 2018, a movie that I love, no, from Panos Cosmatos, a Canadian director. But I think it's a lot of people that has been working on color. And in photography is really strange, because usually photographers, or how I was taught to do photography, is to have correct exposure and correct color. You have to have a gray card to don't have a deviation, or to have a color cast. And I think color cast or in color per se is a way to communicate mood, atmosphere, psychology. So for me, color has been really important since day one when I began doing photography. And in that same term, the accident to fail in the taking pictures, to have errors or whatever. And sometimes that's where I found the more astounding colors or moods, or no, is taking away the power of the camera and having more power in my own interpretation of the scene. No, I know the cloud is not yellow. I see it, and it's not yellow, but I feel like really warm, and I feel like really kind of at home in that place. So if I warm up a little bit all the scene, I will feel more cozy, more like in-house, or with someone embracing you. I don't know. It's kind of for me, color is really, really important.
Just to finish this conversation, Gerardo, why? Because photography is becoming more and more important in contemporary art and in general in culture. But why photography is important from your point of view, and especially, I mean, not talking about the documentary photography or photography to have like a record of what's going on in the world, but more on the artistic side, no more on the creative side. Why is it important, and why people should pay more attention to photography? I mean, I'm sure that it's paying more attention, but like compared to painting and all that, why is it important? Why do you do photography, and how do you feel that the people should consider when buying photography, for instance?
Because photography has been with all of us since day one. Since you were born, someone has taken a picture of you when you were born, or with your pets, or with a birthday, or on a travel, or your grandfather, or your mother, or your father, or people that are not with you anymore. Because photography has been part of our life since we were born. You have taken photography, or taking pictures, or someone has taken a picture of you since you were born. And for us, it's like so common that maybe that's why we think that it's photography. It doesn't. But if I ask you this question, Salvador, for example, if I ask you to give me a picture that you really care about of your mother or your father, and to give it away to me, and or sell it to me, you will say, for sure, no way, it's the only picture I have of my father, or it's the only picture I have when I was 5 years old. How powerful is that rectangle, that piece of paper that has an image on it, no? And it will not be the same on a drawing you have, for example, but the power that has an image is more, no? So in that sense, an image, a photography, will be with you for the rest of your life, no? And there are photographies that has marked our lives, not just in our family album, but the pictures that we have seen and that has been with us since day one. No? On the contrary, painting is another level or another kind of representation. And I think photography is something, it's amazing for many things, no? And it also has been a quest for the human being to record the world as they think it is, no? And I think into contemporary art, or into contemporary art, you cannot understand a museum of contemporary art where there are no photography. Many important artists right now are doing photography as their own thing, as the only thing they're doing. And there are also artists that are working with photography and painting, because photography is now it's part of our dialogue between a gallery, a museum, and people that go into museums. For a lot of time, people thought that photography and art was that was on the 100 years ago, that they were not compatible, and not anymore. We think photography, as a friend curator of me says, she says that it's the queen of contemporary art. No? It's like near to you as a human being, and it's still amaze you, photography, of the things that are there, the people that. I will say something that the photography is the only thing that made us like immortals. I'm being clear. It's the only thing that beyond time, the people that are taking that picture will be immortal forever, and the people that are not with us anymore, the street that is not there anymore, the landscape that is not as used to be. So it's really powerful, that piece of paper, or that container of so many meanings. Of course, there are photography that are shallow, like more like the normal thing, and there are photographies that has something like more deep, and that can make you like move you in many ways. I have many pictures in my house. Most of them are not mine. And there are pictures that I live with them, and that I can see them every day. I also have painting, but I'm more into. There are pictures that I love. I have, for example, that one over there. That's from Andres Serrano. It's a dead man, no? And many people, when came to my house, they say, "Why you have a picture of a dead man?" Well, for me, it's the piece. So for me, it's like it's a photo that I can live forever with it. It's like I love that picture, no? And it's from La Morgue, the series of the deaths, no? So it's a autopsy, like a. But I love it. It's like a kind of a picture that I always go back to it, and it has a special meaning for me.
Perfect, Gerardo. Thank you very much, Gerardo, again, and I hope that we can meet again here in Canada. I mean, if not in Mexico, but here in Canada, so you can continue doing photos here. Well, I really hope that you enjoy this conversation, and if you like this work and you want to know more, and if you want to acquire some of these pieces, we have special editions of any of the pieces of these artists at the ICE Photography Shop. This is the address, icestore.me, and if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at exchange@iceamericas.org. And soon we're going to have also collaboration workshops, so stay tuned and hope to see you soon.